Welcome to Sergeant's Time. My name is Sergeant Apolinar and I will be your instructor for today. Today's topic will be the Army National Guard history. But before we proceed, I just want to say that if you missed last week's video, which covered what the Recruit Sustainment Program is, please watch that and it'll just give you an intro of what we're doing, of what Sergeant's Time is. And we'll go from there. Again, welcome to Sergeant's Time. Today's topic is the Army National Guard history, and we will get right on it. So, I will switch from me to this PowerPoint. Why should we know this, right? So that's one of the things that we, as soldiers, we should understand the why, right? And it's not, to understand the why doesn't necessarily mean to contradict or to tell our leaders that to undermine their authority, right? That's not our goal in understanding the why. We just want to know the things, why we do the things that we do, right? And it helps us get the mission done if we know why we're doing the things that we're doing, right? So for example, for the history of the Army National Guard, it is important to know the contribution of the Army National Guard throughout America's history because it is filled with acts of heroism, service beyond the call of duty, and far-reaching bravery. Those individual soldiers, as well as units, are indeed a tribute to the spirit and nature of the individuals who have served under our proud flag. As a soldier in this honored organization, you share the pride, strength, resilience, and determination exhibited by past and present selfless service. I want to ensure that you get this, right? So, you are the future of the Army National Guard. You are the future of this organization, of this state, of this country. You are going to, at one point, replace me and my peers and our superiors above us. The Army train will keep on going, right? So to know where we started adds a little bit more of knowledge and essentially help you in leading and taking picking up the torch and moving forward with it and making this organization a better organization. Right? So again, I want to highlight on this slide, it says in bold letters, membership is not given, but rather it is earned. You earned it through your enlistment, and you earn it every day. You pay rent every day, right? Quote unquote, pay rent every day while you're working out, while you're getting your preliminary military education done, right? You are earning your right to be called a citizen soldier, right? And one of the first two milestones would be enlisting, right? That's the first one in MEPS. And the second milestone would be accomplishing basic combat training and advanced individual training, right? And that's, take it to heart that what you're doing is a good thing, that you are picking up the torch and you're honoring the people, the men and women that have served before you. So TLO, Terminal Learning Objective, this is what we want to do, right? Action, identify accomplishments of the Army National Guard throughout the history of the United States of America, right? And conditions during this training session and under observation, essentially the lesson plan that we've created through STREM, right? That's the conditions through this stream or this video recording. That's how you're going to get this training. And standards would be using the STREM module to discuss the significant events of the Army National Guard from the beginning of the militia to current foreign and domestic situations. Membership in the Army National Guard is an honor bestowed upon you due to your commitment to stand behind the principles and values that our founding fathers outlined in the Constitution of the United States. Membership is not given, but rather it is earned. The brief history will cover the early militia and provide some indication of their hardships and triumphs. In Learning Activity 2, we will cover the modern Army National Guard and its involvement in the World Wars, as well as other skirmishes, conflicts, and protective invasions, and finally, the Army National Guard of today. It is not possible to include the activities of every state and territory and their successes and failures while deployed. The purpose of this lesson plan is to help you understand how the Army National Guard got to this point in history, having served as the oldest military force in the history of the United States of America from 1636 to today. So, this topic only covers the Army National Guard as a whole. There's the Alaska Army National Guard has its own history, right? Through the Alaska Territorial Guard, through Muktuk Marston, right? So that's going to be its own episode, and just be on the lookout for that. So I just wanted to give a clear understanding of what we're going. Again, this is the Army National Guard's history. So during the first muster, citizen soldier, a militia. The term militia comes from a Latin word meaning soldier. So militia is a soldier and had its beginnings in early Western civilization of Greece. Like the Greek militia, the early American militia was formed to meet continuing problems between municipalities, landowners, and in case of the American militia, skirmishes with Native Americans. Perhaps even more demanding, the militia often served as the local police using their own weapons and equipment. Additionally, the militia would often serve as guides, protectors for ventures into unknown territory. So think of the backdrop here. This was in 1636. This was pre-Revolutionary War. This is pre-America, right? So think of who is ruling our country at this point at 1636, right? So that's the backdrop of the early militia. And moving on to the French and Indian War, what began as a struggle for land and power between the French and English became the starting point of the disagreements between the English and the 13 colonies, later to be named the United States of America. Led by British, the militia from South Carolina to Pennsylvania, the original 13 colonies, defeated the French forces in Canada, where they surrendered at Montreal, giving England control of all of North America from St. Augustine to the Hudson Bay, and all lands between the Atlantic and the Mississippi River. All right, we're kind of going through this. As to me, I'm a little biased, going a little bit more towards World War II and the most recent conflicts, the wars that we have, the global war on terror. Those are kind of my favorite topic of this history. I'm not saying not to diminish any of the previous conflicts or previous wars that we've been through, but that's where I'm a little bit more knowledgeable as far as having more examples. Let's go over the American Revolution. The Revolutionary War, the widening gap between the colonies and the British, developed through economic and social differences, brought the regimented, well-trained, well-disciplined, and well-provisioned British regular soldier against the ragtag part-time soldier whose only attribute was that he could muster in minutes, hence the name Minuteman. So if you didn't know, Guardsmen, one of our nicknames would be the Minuteman, and that's where it came from, right? So we were the early militia during the American Revolution. We were essentially untrained, right? We were following the tactics or the lack thereof during the Revolutionary War from the British, and the Minuteman was because we could muster soldiers within a minute or in minutes. In fact, in the early part of the war, the British considered them to be a joke. This opinion of the Minuteman by the British officers soon was proved wrong. Obviously, we know that now because we are the United States of America and we're not under the British Empire anymore. Think of the part that we played there, right? One movie comes to mind, which is, it's skipping my mind, with Mel Gibson It is the Patriot, right? If you haven't seen it, it's an awesome movie, and it depicts some situations of what it looked like during that period. So if you are a movie fanatic, and or if you learn visually, I encourage you to do that. World War One. All right, we're getting into the World Wars. The Army National Guard's involvement in World War One. Delegation of duty regarding state and federal authority was established at this time. Met substantial resistance from the Army National Guard because individual soldiers were deployed with regulars and simply became members of the unit they were assigned to rather than the units to which they joined. So what does that mean? During World War One, because of the need of soldiers, essentially we were just being placed or being deployed with the regular unit, with an active duty unit in this case, right? So there's a little bit of resistance because if you didn't know this, under the umbrella of the United States Army, there are three components. There is the active duty component, the reserve component, and the National Guard. So what does that mean? We all get the same training, we all go to the same schools, we get the same uniform, right? But each component has its own culture. So, and that's kind of what they're talking about, that there were some resistance because you essentially joined an organization, and then next thing you know, you're being put into another unit. So there were in total 18 National Guard divisions in World War One. 18 National Guard divisions. Think of that. At this point, it is again, and also, again, we're coasting through this information, but think of World War One. What happened in World War One? Right, the trench warfare. Literally, you are battling with the enemy, right, across from you, 100 yards from you, in between trenches, right? And you're being bombarded with artillery, with gas, and you're essentially charging the enemy and going into the line of fire in a frontal assault, right? There were minimal tactics at this point. So that's kind of the backdrop of World War One, and that picture that's in this slide kind of depicts that, right? Like the dead trees, the dead bodies on the ground, right? So that World War One, if you have not read of World War One or dug into it a little bit, it's a bloody war, I tell you that. So yeah, yep. If you are also a fan of audiobooks or podcasts, I encourage you to learn more about these conflicts, these wars that we were a part of, and use that. I say this during drill, that use that as a story that you can share with other warriors, with other soldiers, and use that knowledge of that conflict. And whenever you feel down, it's like, man, I am not, because there are moments where you're gonna feel like, man, I don't know if I can do this. Think of the soldiers back in World War One, the Revolutionary War, of what they've accomplished, and I'm sure 100% that'll motivate you to do and succeed in whatever you're doing, right? At least that's how I sometimes motivate myself, is through that. So, and I don't want to, by any means, I don't want to read what's in this slide already. If you want, please pause this video and read a little bit more of what's in the slide, right? The last thing I want to do is just read off the slide, because I know you can do that, right? I do not want to insult anyone's intelligence. World War One, another thing that I wanted to share, it's the Battle of Somme, and I think I'm pronouncing that right. But that battle right there, millions of people, millions of soldiers died within only a couple of days, right? Again, that's the backdrop of World War One, and what guardsmen and other military men were were in, right? So World War II. Moving on to World War II. World War II, with continued unrest in Europe, specifically the aggressiveness of Hitler's Nazi Germany, the United States began an unprecedented peacetime training regimen involving over 500,000 soldiers, including National Guard soldiers. The National Guard gained in strength and resolve and would prove itself time and time again in combat as World War II continued. Every state's National Guard unit not already on active duty was called to active service. The 19th Division, called the American Division, was first to be deployed, giving the North Dakota Army Guard the distinction of being the first troops to go on the offensive in World War II. So on the first offensive mission that we conducted as an army, North Dakota Army National Guard was part of it. The National Guard was comprised of 19 divisions, 9 of which were in the European theater. 9 National Guard divisions under General Douglas MacArthur's direction played key roles in the successful campaigns in the Pacific. I'd also would like to plug in this is kind of where the history of the Alaska Army National Guard begins, right? So during this time, we were still a territory, and we did have Alaska National Guard was a thing early in World War II, and then Alaska Territorial Guard started becoming of who we are, right? Again, it's going to be its own episode. It's going to be its own instruction, and we'll get more into that specific Alaska Army National Guard history in a future episode. The Korean War. The Korean mobilization continues to reign as one of the most significant events after World War II. The Army National Guard provided a means of rapid expansion of the Army to a larger and more intense force and strengthened our defense posture throughout the world. Korean War, it's also dubbed as the Forgotten War. It's one thing that comes to mind when I hear of the Korean War, based on the books and audiobooks that I've read or listened to, is the coldness, and it kind of depicts it there. The mountainous area between North Korea and South Korea, where now North Korea and South Korea, right, where the battle was happening, it was such a rigorous, it was the engagement area was just so cold, mountainous, and it's the stories that I've heard, again, through the books and audiobooks, are just deadly. It just not only because of the combat, right, but also of the environmental considerations. So do your research. Don't rely on just this one faucet of information, right? You should be doing your own research in regards to these topics, right? Vietnam. Currently reading a book or listening to an audio book about Vietnam right now, and I'm sure some of you might have heard of the term "go to war or go to jail," right? And that was it's in the cadence, but there's an actual term for that, and I just wanted to share it because I've been sharing it all day. It's called punitive enlistment. So if you didn't know that, that was what it was called. So essentially, the judge would give you an option to go to war or go to jail, and it would be called a punitive enlistment. We don't do that now, right? Because if you have, it's harder to get in the military now. And again, it shows more of who you are as a warrior, because you are qualified and ready to serve your country because you are in good standing, that you are a good citizen, that you have met the requirements to join and serve your country, right? So, but back in the day when Vietnam War was happening, they needed soldiers, they needed bodies, they needed people to serve and essentially to keep the fight going, right? Very controversial. again, the Vietnam War was a very controversial conflict. So do your research, find out more of what happened during that conflict, so you are more knowledgeable on this topic. Widespread sentiment against the Vietnam War created one of the darkest days in the National Guard history. After a group of Kent State protesters injured over 50 Army National Guard soldiers by throwing rocks and other projectiles, the Guard opened fire, killing 4 students and wounding 9 others. Right, so it's a very touchy, sensitive subject, but these things happen, or these things had happened, and we need soldiers, we need leaders, we need future youth leaders of this organization to be able to make the right decision at the right time, right? So I'm sure whatever the context was during the Kent State protesters, there were circumstances, there were contexts that that could be oversimplified. But if you don't dive into it, and that's the whole goal of Sergeant's Time, right? Is to get you interested in learning more about the National Guard, right? So moving on to Operation Desert Storm, and if both in Vietnam, more now on Vietnam and Operation Desert Storm. If you have family members that have served during those time frame, during that time frame, I encourage you to pick their brain and listen to their stories, listen to what they have to offer you as far as knowledge, because there are a lot of knowledge out there that you be a sponge, and that you can take that in basic training, right? You be a sponge, learn whatever you can, and if it doesn't apply to who you are, what your beliefs are, or especially if it doesn't apply to the Army values, then don't take that, right? But don't be that person, don't be that individual that is a closed book, that is oh, this is the only thing I know and I'm sticking to this, right? Be a sponge, be an empty water. I can't remember. I forget the quote that Jet was it. What's that? Oh man, I completely spaced out on who that martial artist is, and essentially be as fluid as water, right? So I'm getting sidetracked. So let's go on to Operation Desert Storm, the Persian Gulf War. During the short Persian Gulf War in 1990, I wasn't even born at this time, the Army National Guard once again proved its expertise, experience, and valor, as over 37,000 troops were deployed to Saudi Arabia in its proximity during Operation Desert Shield and Operation Desert Storm. 25,000 Army National Guard troops provided support in Europe and in CONUS, which is continental United States, and proved to the American public that the effectiveness of its citizen soldiers. The invasion of Iraq, the first time they invaded Iraq, right? The war with Iraq was short-lived, and history has not yet given us a final version. To this day, Army National Guard troop, this lesson plan, obviously, we are out of Iraq now. There are some units that operate there, but back in the first invasion of Iraq, right? In Operation Desert Storm, and not too long ago, history kind of repeats itself. So that's another food for thought for you. If you understand history, hopefully you don't repeat the same mistakes, and you only learn the good stuff. You only apply the good stuff for future operations. The invasion from 20 March to we're still in the invasion of Iraq. The invasion from 20 March to 1 May was strongly opposed by many Americans as well as citizens of the free world. Though scheduled for departure and eventual demobilization in the near future, American soldiers, including Army National Guard, remain on Iraqi soil and are under constant alert. Right, and this is kind of where we're moving into what's happening now, right? Or I guess this is kind of where my experience firsthand will start to come up, the global war on terror. And we're slowly moving away from the global war on terror and moving to near peer future operations, right? So uh, I shouldn't. I would not like to say that gone are the days that we are fighting only terrorists, right? Now, the terrorists are still a threat, but the other thing is we also have to be prepared to fight near peer enemies. And what does near peer mean? Near peer means any any combatant that is close to our capabilities. And when I say our, the U.S. Army's capabilities, right? So those are your near peer threats. Global War 2003, Global War on Terror. In Afghanistan specifically, General David Petraeus, head of Central Command, has suggested that we use more National Guard troops in the development of a framework to train Afghans in modern farming techniques. So we had a lot of during global war on terror in Afghanistan and Iraq, there were the National Guard's presence could be felt. Right, we were the National Guard were deployed to these theater of operations constantly. Right, and yeah, so a little bit of my experience when it comes to global war and terror at Afghanistan specifically. I was deployed there from 2012. My first deployment was 2012, and then the second and the third one were 2014 and 2016. And all three of those deployments, we were supporting this mission, the mission of handing over the fight to the Afghans, the Afghan army or the Afghan military, so they can take over in securing their own country, right? So we were working with really more in the second and my third deployment. We were working with advisors for them to teach and guide the Afghan military into becoming their own, so they can conduct their own security operations. My first deployment was a little bit more that was more kinetic. That's where we were in northeast Afghanistan, and it was, for me, that is the soldier the soldier that I am today was because of the experiences that I had and the leadership that I had. Majority of it during that time frame. And shout out if at one point they watched this video, the men and women that I served with during that time frame, they were awesome, right? And they're the reason why I'm still here. They're the reason that I am the leader that I am today, and I am blessed that I had that experience. But again, I don't want to get sidetracked on my experience, because the goal of Sergeant's Time is that share experience, but really more on teach you these topics that we're talking about. And some of you might get bored that, oh man, this is just kind of history, who wants to learn history or RSV overview. In the near future, we will start looking at land navigation tactics, basic rifle marksmanship techniques. We'll get a little bit more into that skill level 1. But think of these topics as foundational knowledge that you build on, right? So, for example, and knowing what happened, knowing the tactics of what we did in the Revolutionary War to how we're doing things now, like the battle drills that we're doing things now, you will see the difference between the tactics or the lack thereof during the Revolutionary War and the tactics that we have now, right? Before, we just conduct a frontal assault and kneel. If the first volley, once they're done, they take a knee. The second volley then fires, while the first line are reloading, so on and so forth. But now we're doing a cover and move, a maneuver, flanking maneuver, right? So, and the equipment that they had before, the muskets, now we have M4s, automatic rifle again. So think of to say that, just think of the point that I'm trying to get across is that it's a foundational knowledge that you should know. So when you're operating individually or as a group, you have that, oh, yeah, that's why we do the things that we do now, because we learned from our mistakes before. So here in the next slide, it will go over the Soldier's Creed. So if you go line by line, don't just read the Soldier's Creed. Truly understand what each line means, right? And I think we have, we're over 30 minutes. I don't want to go over 30 minutes any longer, but again, maybe in this next video we'll cover the Soldier's Creed line by line and see what that means, right? Dig a little bit more into what each line means, what each word means. I encourage you, again, drill is happening. It's January 20th today. This video is being recorded on January 20th. In a couple of days, we will be reporting for drill. See you then, and you better have a fresh haircut and be ready to train. So let us close this session by, here's the Soldier's Creed. Terminal learning objective. Again, our actions that we needed to conduct was identify accomplishments of the Army National Guard throughout the history of the United States of America, conditions given this video recording, given the STREM module, and in this online environment. That's the conditions that we're given, and the standards discuss the significance of events of the Army National Guard from the beginning of the militia to current foreign and domestic situations using the STREM module. And we have done just that. So, again, this is Sergeant's time. Thank you for participating. My name is Sergeant Apolinar. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please don't hesitate to message us through your recruiter, through the phone number that we have on the newsletter. Here, comment on here. And if you have a friend that would like to visit, to conduct training with us during drill, please invite them. And if you know of somebody that would want to join the Army National Guard, please don't hesitate to reach out to your recruiter and get that. Because just like in the previous video, we mentioned that there are 2 ways for you to get promoted here in the Army National Guard: RSP during your stay, and that's Stripes for Buddies and Stripes for Skills. And if that doesn't ring a bell, if you don't know what that means, please check out our previous video, the RSP overview, and you'll get a better feeling or better understanding of what that is. I am signing out now, and I will see you on the next one, and thank you.